Shaktipat Seer 2.
This perfect wisdom sutra, thus I have heard Avalokitesvaro bodhisattva practice deep highest perfect wisdom when perceived the five fields of consciousness all empty, relieved every suffering. Sariputra, form is not different from emptiness, emptiness not different from form. Form is the emptiness, emptiness is the form. Sensation, recognition, conceptualization. Sariputra, student, this is the original character of everything. Not born, not annihilated, not tainted, not pure, does not increase, does not decrease, therefore in emptiness. No form, no sensation, no recognition, no conceptualization, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no color, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no object of touch, no eye, no world of eyes until we come to also no world of consciousness, no ignorance also, no ending of ignorance, all the way through to old age and death, also no ending of old age and death, no suffering, no cause of suffering, no nirvana, no path, no wisdom, also no attainment, because no non-attainment. Every bodhisattva depends on highest perfect wisdom, because mind meets no obstacle. Because of no obstacle, no fear is born. Gone beyond all topsy-turvy absolutes, attain nirvana. Past, present, and future, every Buddha depends on highest perfect wisdom, therefore attain supreme perfect enlightenment. Therefore I know highest perfect wisdom is the great holy mantra, the great untainted mantra, the supreme mantra, the incomparable mantra, is capable of assuaging all suffering, true because not false. Therefore he proclaimed highest perfect wisdom mantra, and proclaimed mantra says, Hayata gate, gate, paragate, parasam gate, bodhi, swaha. O Sariputra, this is how a bodhisattva, mahasattva comes to know the highest perfect wisdom. Then Buddha praised the noble Avalokitesvaro. Excellent, excellent, highest perfect wisdom is accomplished exactly like that.
Prajnaparamita Sutra, which means Prajnaparamita means wisdom acquired by experience. It's an understanding that realization can't be had through the lower type of dualistic understanding. The whole purpose of the Prajnaparamita Sutra, the Heart Sutra, which we've just listened be recited by Allen Ginsberg, is to nullify the illusion of duality. As he says, emptiness is not different from form, form is not different from emptiness. The whole way through the Heart Sutra is meant for the nullification of duality. We get to thinking, here is this me, here is this world appearing to me before my cognitive faculties, my senses, and it creates coverings over our awareness. So our awareness becomes covered by a dualistic, in a dualistic way, I should say. There's me and my covered awareness, and then there's the absolute reality out there, which I am trying to understand, which I'm trying to get in contact with, which I'm trying, maybe not trying to understand. And this is a trick of the conditional self who appears in time and space. It's just the nature of conditional consciousness, which becomes covered by the dark side of matter. And so the Prajnaparamita Sutra is meant to liberate us from conceptions of duality. Instead of thinking, here's my body, here's my form, this is my house, this is my life, and this is what I do, how can you ever encapsulate that? It's like moment to moment, we're building up heaps, what they call the 5 aggregates of consciousness, building up heaps of consciousness, telling ourselves, this is what we are, this is what we do. Constantly as we go through time, these heaps pile up on our awareness, and they form ahamkara. They form false ego. How can I ever encapsulate who I am totally? Tomorrow I might meet the most amazing person in the world who completely changes my mind about everything that I thought about me, myself, etc. Tomorrow I might go on some adventure and grow as a person. So how can I fully say, this is how I am, I'm like this, I do this, I'm like this, these are my likes and my dislikes? How can I say that? And besides, this form is temporary. There's no eye, no ear, no nose, no senses, is the realization. Because these things are a condition of the material body. And the material body is temporary. So they say, no eye, no ear, no nose. It's a lack of grasping at the objects of the senses. Because when you grasp and focus all of your attention on the objects of the senses, your mind becomes cloudy with a gray, filmy covering. And this translates onto your emotional astral body, onto your vital body. All of the layers of your bodies are covered by this material energy. And all of this is based on the conception that who I tell myself that I am moment to moment is myself. That the reality that appears through my senses is all that is. And that it's permanent, and that it's real, essentially. But all of this universe will be consumed in a blazing inferno at the end of the kalpa. And absorbed back into the body of Mahavishnu. So what exists is not the physical material universe, but what exists is the great omniscient absolute reality. How could anything exist which is separate to it? This thing which I call myself, this heap of elements and subtle layers, how can I call that myself when it's destructible? Therefore, everything which I have assumed to be myself is more like a process of awakening, like a process of awakeness, like a process of various ciphers and streams of information flowing through me, which grow and change and evolve and adapt in relation to what's going on outside and within me. So what is it that's going on within me and outside me? Most people have various categories. They say, here is a tree, it's in this particular family, it grows like this. They say, here is a store, I go here to get my groceries, I get lost in the surroundings, I start thinking of myself as an American or European or man or woman, and with a particular age and beliefs, etc. But instead of being attached to those things, I should let my identity be empty. Now, the early Mahayana Buddhist schools define two levels of truth of the Buddha's teachings: the relative truth and the absolute truth. So when I say make yourself empty, it doesn't mean in a nihilistic way. It doesn't mean that I should be nothing, like as in some kind of dualistic material conception of nothing. It means that when you look at yourself as being inherently empty, the fullness is not interrupted. The fullness is not interrupted. If I could quote a beautiful verse from Santideva, A Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. It says, without contacting the entity that is imputed, you will not apprehend the absence of that entity. Kind of confusing to an external point of view. It means if you don't tell yourself who you are, you will never be away from your fundamental nature. If you don't grasp at a conception, dualistic conception, this or that thing, in relation to what I observe with my senses, remember that I'm talking two levels of truth, relative and absolute. Because on the relative plane you say, yes, I'm not this, I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not this. But on the absolute plane one is absorbed into the fundamental reality, which is a real self. But the real self is so full that any attempt to contact it and work it into a box immediately causes you to lose it. Because your fundamental self-nature, Atma Tattva, is non-different from Buddha, Krishna, Christ, Muhammad, whoever you want to choose as your Ishta Devata. It says in Fusus al-Hikam, if I could switch from Mahayana Buddhism over to Sufism for a second, it says in Fusus al-Hikam, when Allah, glory be to Him, willed that the source of His most beautiful names, which are beyond enumeration, be seen, or you can equally say that He willed His source to be seen, He willed that they be seen in a microcosmic being which contained the entire matter, endowed with existence, and through which His secret was manifested to Him. For how a thing sees itself through itself is not the same as how it sees itself in something else which acts as a mirror for it. So He manifests Himself to Himself in a form which is provided by the place in which He is seen. He would not appear thus without the existence of this place and His manifestation Tajali to Himself in it. What He's saying here is very subtle and cryptic, that each loka, each world system, provides for a different type of body. When your soul entered this world system, the loka gave you a body made of gross material elements, born out of your mother. Appropriately and symbolically. Likewise, if you're born on the planet of the Devas, you'll receive a body which matches that dimension, and it will be very, very different from this body. If you're born on the world of Brahma, you'll receive a body like that of Brahma. If you're born in the world of ghosts, Pretalok, you receive a body of a Preta. If you're born in the world of demons, Asura, you receive a very heavily material body, like that in the world of the demons. And all of this is Allah, God, knowing Himself. For the unseen and omniscient, omnipresent Lord is in all places at all times. And this conception is exactly the Hindu conception, and this conception is exactly the Mahayana Buddhist conception, and the Jewish conception, also the Kabbalistic conception. All of them have maps, cosmological diagrams, which show a type of tree. In the West, we call it the tree of life. In the East, they call it the great imperishable banyan tree. The tree of life is in the image of you, and you are in the image of it. And this connotes the Mahayana Buddhist philosophy of codependent arising. That we all arise together. And like the jewels hung in the web of Indra from his palace on the top of Mount Sumeru, we are all reflecting one another. All arising together, all reflecting one another, and completely empty. Om Tat Sat. If I were to tell you that I have a great gift to give you, you would need empty hands to receive that gift that was thrust out to you. If you're stuck on your idea of your personality and what you think it is, I'm not saying that people don't have personalities, don't get me wrong, but whenever I say things like this, understand that what I'm saying, implying, is that personality, self-nature is more of a dynamic process, a happening, rather than a frozen thing. So, if I am absorbed in my conception of my personality, it's almost like a sick, perverted game that people play. It is a sick, perverted game that people play from God's perspective. That we pick up these dead husks, prance them around. As Rumi says, let me see if I can find this quote because it's so good. It's just beautiful, this poem that he wrote, and it's right here. Like kids on hobby horses, soldiers claim to be riding. The same with the fightings of mankind, its squabble with play swords, no purpose, totally futile. Your actions mean nothing. The sex and war that you do, you're holding part of your pants and prancing around. Dun da dun dun da dun. Don't wait until you die to see this. Recognize that your imagination and your thinking and your sense perception are reed canes that children cut and pretend are horses. My friends, do you understand what this is saying? It's kind of subtle, but very profound. It's saying that my sense perception are reed canes that children cut and pretend are horses. This is what Rumi said. I mean, what a great mind. It's a perverted game. Disgusting, pointless, and ignorant. Full of delusion. When your sense perceptions are nothing more than reed canes to be cut and played with by children who use them as horses in their silly games of love and war. This is called beginningless karma. I think the word is anadi karma, I'm not sure. Beginningless karma. When you make contact with the false ego, you enter into that co-relationship with the beginningless karmic bullshit of the entire universe. Because our sense perceptions are nothing more than reed canes to be cut by children as they play horsey on them and go dun-ta-dun, dun-ta-dun. Elsewhere in his poem, he says that this world is full of children, and very, 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 very few are they who are actually adults. And he says that those who have no desire are adults. And again, he's speaking from a relative and an absolute perspective. It doesn't mean that you have no desire whatsoever, necessarily, in a dualistic way, but rather that kind of desire is not arising out of a need for something to satiate the body or the senses. I mean, you still feel a desire for compassionate good, and you still feel a desire for these higher things in relation to the absolute, but the desire for this world is cut off completely. And that's the supreme Prajnaparamita. That's the emptiness realization. So-called emptiness. When you're completely uprooted from being entangled in the senses. And it's hard to understand from a sensual person's perspective, how it's even possible to uproot the senses. How can I possibly exist in a state where I'm not affected by all of the bullshit around me? And that's why the Prajnaparamita Sutra, for starters, is an exposition upon the true middle way. Not form, not emptiness. No suffering or lack of ending of suffering, etc. It's the middle way between dualities. No not self, no self. The middle way between dualities is the perfect clarity. And actually, symbolically, you can say that the middle way between dualities is represented by Ida, Pingala Nadi, and the Sushumna Nadi. The Sushumna Nadi is the central channel, which is flanked by the polar extremes of Ida and Pingala. And in order to really and the delusion of the senses and etc., the Ida and Pingala streams, which carry the winds of your body, the pranas, must be controlled and conducted into the central column. So just like the Prajnaparamita Sutra, which states that the two extremes must be resolved in the middle way, the tantric practices states that the two extremes of body and mind must be absorbed into the spirit. And this happens through the breath, which is that covering between body and mind, the pranamaya kosha. And that's why the Buddha recommended the meditation of focusing only on the breath. I forgot the name of the here's the name of the practice. Anapanasati. Anapanasati. It means to feel the sensations caused by the movements of the breath in the body as practiced in the context of mindfulness. Everything I'm saying to you here is the absolute essence of yoga, of the path of the yogi. Not necessarily the path of the bhakta, not necessarily the path of the karmi. This is the yogi understanding, completely. Although, even in those other paths, there's no advancement until this process occurs. They go about it in a slightly different way. This is the direct science. The Anapanasati Sutra specifically concerns mindfulness of inhalation and exhalation as a part of paying attention to one's body in quietude, and recommends the practice of Anapanasati meditation as a means of cultivating the 7 factors of awakening: sati, mindfulness; dhammavichaya, analysis; viryaya, persistence, which leads to piti, rapture; then to passaddhi, serenity, which in turn leads to samadhi, concentration, and then to upekkha, equanimity. So only after this process can you have a true mind and heart of equanimity to all beings. The Vaishnava texts talk about that you should view every single person literally as having the Lord in themselves. It says in the Sri Isha Upanishad, of a quote which I quote often, says that whoever looks at every living being as an expansion of the Supreme Lord never has any enmity towards any of them. Okay, that's all well and good. Now, how many Vaishnavas, so-called Vaishnavas, do you know that actually experience that? 0, in my opinion. Maybe like 1 or 2 of the very realized Vaishnava gurus have this kind of experience through their extensive practice and dedication and devotion. But there's no need to wait until you're an old 70-year-old man like these people tell you that you need to do. That's nonsense. You can achieve equanimity not through, serving at some temple somewhere, necessarily. I mean, that's a way to gradually cultivate equanimity, possibly and potentially if you have a good guru and the program is working, but it's not necessary. You can cultivate equanimity through realization and through the practice of this anapanasati meditation, which gradually cleans the coverings of our soul. I was reading on a Buddhist Tibetan Vajrayana site yesterday, and it was talking how that the Buddha nature is there in everybody. In other words, the absolute reality is only the absolute reality. It's the only thing which exists. That's why it's the absolute reality. The fundamental nature of everyone is that. And it's said that the only thing that needs really to be done is a removal of dirty coverings. So, what they don't say on this page about breath meditation, but what is understood by the yogis, both in Tibet and in India, the Hindu yogis as well as the Vajrayana yogis, is that through a cultivation of the breath meditation, anapanasati meditation, the winds of the vital energies of your body, the pranas, as I've said before, are conducted inwardly into the central channel. And when they do this, you feel the drops, what they talk about drops. Like a liquid is dropping through your center, from within. It's a very strange feeling. It comes from within the mind, and the mind is within the breath, and the breath is within the body. So it comes from beyond and within that even. The breath is a very interesting thing. I would definitely advise everybody here to look up the Sanskrit and Vedic understanding of what the breath is. Definitely. Rumi says in one of his poems that all we are is the divine breath. Bayezid al-Bistami, the famous Sufi saint, had a mystical experience where he was raised out from this earth, or he said he had some experience where he went into like the depths of the ocean or something like this, and he it wasn't like physically but actually like metaphysically went into the depths of the ocean and observed one of the famous Sufi saints who was chanting Hu. He heard a great resounding Hu, as in Allahu Haq. I don't know exactly what Hu means in Sufism, but I know that it signifies the breath according to their understanding. So this Bayezid of Bestam, which is a city in Iran, very famous Sufi realized saint. He observed one of his, I believe it was one of, oh no, I think it was the saint Naqshbandi, who was to come in the next couple hundred years. I think that's who he saw, if I remember correctly. It was a very famous Sufi with the name Naqshbandi, who originated, I believe, the Naqshbandi sect of Sufism. Anyway, he saw this person with all of his entourage of disciples, or murids as they call them in Sufism, chanting this great Hu, and this signified the divine breath. They might as well have been chanting Om. It means the exact same thing. Om is the divine breath. Om, another name for Om is pranava, which means the movement of the life breath. Om is called pranava, which means movement of the life breath. Va means movement, and prana is the life breath. So, through this process of anapanasati meditation, the life breath sort of merges with the bigger life breath, with the cosmic Om, with the Shabda Brahman, with the God in the form of vibration. Through a raising of the energy which is connected to the prana, which is the kundalini, through the center and out the top of the head. At that level, the breath energy becomes magnetized in a powerful way. And we become little Shabda Brahmans, little Oms ourselves. We're nothing but empty reflections of the Shabda Brahman at that point. Which is why you see a lot of the Hindu deities wearing what they call a mala, a garland of 50. Panchamalashika, which signifies the 50 matrika letters of the Shabda Brahman, which emerge from the Om. The 50 matrika letters are strewn throughout the 6 chakras, beginning with the 2 Ha and Ksha letters on the either side of the third eye chakra, and they spiral downwards and form wheels within, like torus fields, wheels of spinning prana. Because this prana, this breath energy, is nothing but that Shabda Brahman. If you watch the documentary I produced, the Shabda Brahman documentary is like 3 hours long. But if you watch a little bit of it, what I'm saying will make more sense. Either way, what I'm trying to describe is a process. I'm not trying to describe something concrete and sticky that the mind can grasp onto. It's a process. It's a movement of your life force itself. It's what you are, who you are at the absolute level, not at the sensory level. You are the nature of these gods who wear the Panchamalashika. The whole pantheon of Hindu gods, as I said before, was just an image of the Absolute. Each interconnected and intertwined, each formed by a name arising from the Shabda Brahman. Each in turn related to everything else through that same divine nod or sound energy. Which is expressed through the breath. Each breath you take is like a little mantra. if you listen closely, there's ah-oh. You're breathing in a mantra. You're exhaling a mantra. And it's the magic life-giving mantra. Which is what Shabda Brahman is. And that's why that you are basically the composition of your chakra wheels. The chakra wheels are what creates the form of your body. The chakra wheels are what cultivates the elemental, natures, which sets them apart and gives them individual form and identity. And each of the chakras, if you look on the diagrams of the Hindu chakra diagrams, you'll see, and even the Tibetan Buddhists especially, you'll see the emphasis on the Sanskrit letters which are associated with the chakras. For instance, I'm sure we're aware of the bija mantras for the chakras, which are Lam, Vam, Ram, Yam, etc. These are essentially formed by the other letters which are rotating around it. And all of these together produce your mind, consciousness, and body. And all of them are prana, nothing but prana. The chakras are prana wheels. And prana, as I said earlier, is breath energy. And breath energy is what you are. So what you are is a process of life force flowing through these chakra ciphers. I remember once I was on mushrooms, goomed out of my mind, and I just had this realization that the tree of life Sephiroth, or the chakras, they kept coming to me, this word cipher, like some kind of code sequence which rearranges the life energy through its specific magic circle, magic square type thing. And creates the process of our existence in this realm. So basically, what I want you to get out of what I'm saying is to be more aware of your breath. Be more aware of the power residing in the breath in relation to the mind and emotions. When we get excited, our breath becomes quick. When when we're afraid, we breathe deeply and hard, and our heart starts pumping like mad. Be more aware of how your breath is related to your mental and emotional processes. And start to become more aware of just the breath itself. It says here on the Anavashanti Wikipedia page that while inhaling and exhaling, the meditator practices 1. Training the mind to be more sensitive or more of to one or more of the entire body, to rapture, to the mind itself and mental processes. This is genius stuff. Use your breath to become more aware of the processes of your organism. Training the mind to be focused on one or more of inconsistency, dispassion, cessation, and relinquishment. So by focusing on the breath energy itself entirely, you withdraw the power of the other lower processes which are derived from that energy, and you concentrate it into itself and into the central channel of the Kundalini, the Sushumna. And so in doing so, you become more aware of the inconstancy. You become more aware of the flitteriness of these type of thoughts and emotions, which are full of fear, anxiety, hatred, anger. You realize how flittery and inconsistent they are. They just arise due to my awareness, my energy putting into it, and they drag me down into this mucky muck filth of garbage. And then sooner or later, you know, it's so funny. We even have this saying in Western culture. If someone's really angry, what do we tell them? We say, "Oh, come here, man. Take a second and breathe." We tell them to breathe and count to 10. I mean, it's a stereotype that we have. So by doing this process of anapanashati, I need to get that word down, anapanashati, one completely disentangles from these lower emotions, which are also produced by the bodily organs in relation to the chakras and the pranas that we allow to shift into those negative vibrations.
Bodhisattva depends on highest perfect wisdom, because mind meets no obstacle, because of no obstacle, no fear is born. Gone beyond all topsy-turvy absolutes, attain nirvana. Past, present, and future, every Buddha depends on highest perfect wisdom, therefore attain supreme perfect enlightenment. Therefore I know highest perfect wisdom is the great holy mantra, the great untainted mantra, the supreme mantra, the incomparable mantra, is capable of assuaging all suffering, true because not false. Therefore he proclaimed highest perfect wisdom mantra, and proclaimed mantra says, Hayata Gate Gate Paragate Parasam Gate Bodhi Swaha. O Saraputra, this is how a bodhisattva mahasattva comes to know the highest perfect wisdom. Then Buddha praised the noble avalokitesvaro. Excellent, excellent, highest perfect wisdom is accomplished exactly like that.
Prajnaparamita Sutra, which means Prajnaparamita means wisdom acquired by experience. It's an understanding that realization can't be had through the lower type of dualistic understanding. The whole purpose of the Prajnaparamita,
no recognition, no conceptualization, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no color, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no object of touch, no eye, no world of eyes until we come to also no world of consciousness, no ignorance, all age and death, no suffering, no cause of suffering, no nirvana, no path, no wisdom, also no attainment, because no non-attainment, every
Paramita Sutra, the Heart Sutra, which we've just listened be recited by Allen Ginsberg, is to nullify the illusion of duality. As he says, emptiness is not different from form, form is not different from emptiness. The whole way through the Heart Sutra is meant for the nullification of duality. We get to thinking, here is this me, here is this world appearing to me before my cognitive faculties, my senses, and it creates coverings over our awareness. So our awareness becomes covered by a dualistic
Shaktipat Seer 2.
This perfect wisdom sutra, thus I have heard Avalokitesvaro bodhisattva practice the highest perfect wisdom when perceived the five fields of consciousness all empty, relieved every suffering. Sariputra, form is not different from emptiness, emptiness not different from form. Form is the emptiness, emptiness is the form. Sensation, recognition, conceptualization. Sariputra, student, this is the original character of everything. Not born, not annihilated, not tainted, not pure, does not increase, does not decrease, therefore in emptiness, no form, no sensation.